The United Kingdom is a relatively small nation. Its total area comes to just over 94,000 square miles, making it the 78th largest country on the planet, nestled neatly between Uganda and Guinea. The UK seems especially small when you compare it to other nations which primarily speak English. Countries like the USA, Canada, and Australia absolutely dwarf the UK. Even New Zealand is slightly larger than it. What the UK lacks in geographic size, however, it makes up for in other ways, with a really noticeable way being its abundance of accents. The UK is home to an incredible variety of accents, especially when compared to other English-speaking nations. Australia, for example, is seen as having just 3 accents/dialects. The UK, meanwhile, has anywhere between 40 to 50 different accents according to a variety of sources. It's hard to pinpoint an exact number of accents here because in many cases, it's difficult to realise when one accent ends and another begins. But trust me, there's a lot of them. Simply travelling around this country will make you realise the fact. You could spend half an hour on the train here and be somewhere the locals speak an entirely different accent. UK accents are often talked about in broad strokes, like there's a northern accent and a southern accent and a Scottish accent and so on. But in reality, there's so much more minutiae between them all. There really isn't a singular southern, northern or Scottish accent. In England's south, for example, the southern accent can be split in a multitude of ways. There's the southeast accent and the southwest accent, but even here they can split further. In the southeast we find things like the Sussex accent, the Essex accent, and of course the huge variety of accents found within London itself. The southwest accent even differs in counties like Somerset, Devon and Cornwall, and even more in specific southwest cities like Plymouth and Bristol. The Midlands finds itself with a huge variety of accents too, ranging from the Black Country accent as well as the more specific Birmingham accent. And then in the north, accents range hugely too, from the ones heard in Manchester and Liverpool, the many across Yorkshire, and the many up the northeast coast. The Geordie accent of Newcastle and the Mackem accent of Sunderland are different to one another too, and they are more or less solely divided by a river. And that's only the many different accents of England. The other nations that make up the UK have accent diversity too. Scotland has accents for specific cities like Edinburgh and Glasgow, as well as regional accents like the Grampian accent, or those spoken in the Highlands and Islands. The accents in Wales can vary incredibly too, depending on where you are, becoming stronger in sound the further north. And of course, even Northern Ireland's accents can vary too, from the one heard in Derry to the one heard in Belfast. As mentioned, it's tricky to put a simple number down on the amount of accents the UK has, but it is undoubtedly a huge amount of them. Especially for such a small country. The UK's plethora of accents is such a renowned thing across the globe too, most likely stemming from the country's historic importance on the world stage, as well as the many people who bear these different accents who have become known across the world too. The various accents the UK has to offer is something the country is most known for, and it seems that we ended up with so many different ways of talking for a variety of reasons. The UK is the birthplace of an awful lot of things we now find across the globe, but of course it is also the birthplace of the English language itself, specifically on the island of Great Britain. We've documented the origins of English so many times here on the channel, but as a brief overview for anyone new here, when the Romans left Britain in 410 AD, the island was open to newcomers, and a group of Germanic tribes years down the line decided to call the land home. These tribes were the Anglos, the Saxons, and the Jutes. They spoke somewhat similar tongues to one another, and eventually a hybrid of them was produced, called Anglo-Saxon. Yeah, sorry Jutes, you don't get mentioned in this name. Anglo-Saxon, however, is also known by a different name, Old English, as in the earliest form of the tongue we have today. This makes the English language around 1,500 years old, which yes is pretty old in human years, but in language years is relatively new. This makes English's rise as the world's language, as well as the huge variety of accents it is spoken in, even more impressive, as it all happened so relatively quickly, though of course English's dominance came at a horrendous price in many cases too. While these Germanic tribes are seen as the ones who birthed the tongue, they were far from the only people to have a say in the language's development. Outsiders were going to shape English in a variety of ways, not only via the words that make up the language, but the way it's actually spoken too, aka accents, especially here in the UK. Since the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons and the various kingdoms they would set up across Britain, the island went on to be invaded by multiple other foreign powers too. What's interesting is that these foreign rulers didn't claim the entirety of Great Britain, but instead ended up ruling the roost in just chunks of the land. In the 9th and 10th century, various Scandinavian powers claimed parts of northern England, and of course 1066 saw the French invade too, sticking mainly to the south. Beyond this, the island saw various Viking raids which were especially especially present in the northeast of England. These powers coming over to Britain are a key factor in the accents we hear today. The languages and accents that these invaders spoke in would have heavily influenced how English was spoken in the areas they ruled over, giving us the earliest forms of these UK accents. For example, accents on England's northeast have a heavy Viking influence, while accents found in the southeast may be more shaped by French and Norman. What's interesting is that despite the many miles these invaders would have travelled to conquer these sections of Britain, once they were here they didn't seem to move all that much, nor did the natives they ruled over. The residents of Britain in the far past seemingly lived in relative isolation from one another. The people of the land were not particularly mobile. This would have been for a variety of reasons, ranging from lack of easy transport to the ordinary people of the island not really having any major need to travel beyond their hometowns. Of course there were people who did travel across Britain, from nobility to merchants, but on the whole most just stuck to their own nooks. This isolation many Britons of the past faced meant they would have had very little interaction with people who spoke different accents to them. This put a stop to any kind of accent cross-pollination and allowed those local accents to instead flourish in isolation. Isolation does resoundingly wild things to languages and accents. This means that the UK's many accents can be boiled down to 3 I's: invasion, influence, and isolation. When said like that, it actually sounds really counterintuitive. Influence and isolation are more or less the complete opposites of one another. One involves people coming into a land, and the other involves the people of the land being left alone. Yet it was these two things that led to the UK's many accents. A period of time where people from across the world made themselves at home in various parts of Britain, and then those various parts kept to themselves. It's a really unique set of circumstances, but a set of circumstances that took place centuries ago in the United Kingdom, which resulted in all those accents. The thing is, that was all a very long time ago. The UK is now a far more interconnected place. Someone with a Glaswegian accent today can quite easily find themselves speaking to someone with a Cornish accent. There's far more intermingling between accents. So why hasn't this led to their demise, and we now all speak in one specific way? Well, there's a couple reasons for this. Firstly, because accents, even very old ones, are hard to get rid of. We all have to speak with some kind of accent, so we're never going to get to a point where they are removed entirely. So the ones we've been using for centuries have stuck around. But there is another reason, and it seems to be a matter of pride. Patriotism is an odd thing here in the UK. Of course, many people do have pride for the nation as a whole, but in most cases, people are more proud of their local area, whether that be their nation within the UK, like being proud of Scotland, their county, like Cornwall, or even just their city like Manchester. It's believed that it's through this kind of local pride as to why these accents have stuck around in many cases. People seem to really enjoy celebrating their own local identity here in the UK, and accents are a resoundingly good way of letting people know where exactly you come from and that you aren't shy to celebrate that fact. These are seemingly the key reasons as to why the UK not only has so many accents, but as to why they are still around. And what's interesting here is that it also somewhat explains to us why other English-speaking places like Australia and the USA don't have as many accents. These kinds of countries adopted the language way more recently, and it was brought to the land in a far more purposefully and deliberate way. This didn't allow English to naturally evolve into different accents like it has done here in the UK. Of course, they did eventually morph into those unique accents, but they didn't change anywhere near as much as they did here in Britain. And while the UK might be the country most known for its high volume of accents, it isn't the only place to have so many. Countries like Italy, France, and India all have a huge variety of accents too. The UK is just seemingly the poster child for lands with accent variety. So, if you ever decide to come visit the UK from another part of the globe and aren't all that familiar with the way we speak here, you're probably going to want to research 2 things. First, brush up on your English, and secondly, figure out what accent you're going to be dealing with the most. They can be vastly different from region to region, so if you're travelling to say Newcastle and only have experience with a London accent, then you may be in for a bit of a shock. Seriously though, I remember a few years back I was staying in Liverpool for a few nights, and one morning I was chatting to this guy where I was staying. He was from Spain and had come to Liverpool to practice his English. Yeah, he picked Liverpool, out of every possible city and accent, to be the location in which he would go to get a better grasp on the English language. Poor guy. I hope he's doing okay now. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.